there's no way I'm going to be able to one-shot this, but I still think it's immensely important for me to try to get this information like encapsulated. In this week's episode, we're going to be going over Memorandum 6751. In this document, I'll see if I can just like drop it right here or something, or somewhere conveniently so you guys can see it. It talks about how the visitors contemplate settling on this plane and how they're human-like but bigger in size. It also talks about how they're not excarnate earth people, right? And that they don't come from any, quote, planet as we use the word, but from an etheric planet that interpenetrates with our own. You see, we're talking about interdimensional beings. They've had this information since the 40s, and it's just now coming out. Memorandum 6751. But think about the implications of that. I wanted to make a quick video because I've been having thoughts lately as I see them building up the beast system, the Mark of the Beast style system. That's what this is. And some of this, as well as this. I wanted to create basically like a little thought diagram, and I'll be doing more of these in the future that go over what this is, you know, and why we're having demons and things like this begin to manifest in our realm. You see, this is where we come from. I should have put little arrows right here because we are spirits that are being born in this time period. And this is the realm in which we operate. But the technocrats and these people, they are building an infrastructure that literally summons stuff from the bottomless pit into a false reality. They are going to destroy the exterior world that you see and force us into this false world where they have demons, AI, and again, these low vibrational entities coming from the bottomless pit into this false world, into this matrix. They want to have people born inside this matrix, right? That never get to experience the quote unquote real world, because even this is a projection of a larger fourth dimension existence. You see, we are brought here, or at least born here in this incarnation to do some type of work, whether it's to destroy parts of the old world, or if it's parts to, you know, take part in the creation of the new world. That's why we're born here in this realm, you see, whether we're old souls that are born or young souls that are born, sorry that I misspelled this, or even new souls that just arrived, that are freshly incarnated, that don't have that karmic debt. We are born and put into this realm for a reason. The people that are in control now, they are building an infrastructure to create effectively like an immortal kingdom, an immortal system through which souls do not get born here. In subsequent videos, I'll talk about how this protector, this domain, this realm, what I call the restrainer, which you can find in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 6 through 7, this restrainer does go away eventually. God does let stuff flood into here, and this is one of the reasons why they're trying to protect their kingdom and why they're trying to protect and preserve, again, this false eternity kingdom, because eventually God says, you know what, there's too much corruption, there's too much evil, I've got to do this over. This is what the flood is. These people want to do away with God's natural reset program. They want to establish something that effectively makes them eternal kings, you see. I'll talk about this in subsequent videos, but this is me just trying to get my thoughts out there, that I can see them creating a false reality matrix, a false world full of demons, AI, and low vibrational entities. I can see them constructing this, and at the same time, I can see them threatening this realm by not allowing souls to be born here to do whatever work there is. I'll talk more about this in subsequent videos, but I just wanted to get this out there in one quick one shot. What's going on, people? I think it's crazy that we have hit a point in time, 2026, to where we can have people like Anna Paulina Luna make statements saying, I don't believe that they're aliens. I think that they're interdimensional beings. And then for that statement not to send shockwaves or the reverberations that you think it actually would have, no, it does the exact opposite. It creates a confirmation, so to speak. A confirmation that you're right, we're not alone, and it's also not happening, this communication, in the way that we would expect. What I'm trying to say is we've hit a consciousness awareness point, a point where our minds and our spirits are more malleable and understanding to these type of awarenesses, to these type of consciousnesses, to this type of states of existence, so to speak. And it doesn't just revolve around the awareness of what we think of as aliens. It's being able to hold these higher concept ideas in your head, understanding that aliens, as we think in the corporeal, materialistic sense, isn't really there, but aliens in an interdimensional, otherworldly, extra-dimensional sense. That makes perfect sense. We now have a lexicon to describe, or at least a vocabulary to describe what these aliens are. They're not just Martians, right? They don't come from Galaplaxius 9. They don't come from the far side of the moon. They coexist with us here. Think about the gravity of just that understanding. And so not only is this digestible information, but you also have people taking it a step further and trying to initiate conversation and communication with these entities, you see. So it's much more complex than we think, but I think we've hit a point in history to where this complexity is almost normal. But staying on just the communication factor of people willingly trying to communicate with these interdimensional beings, whether they're demons, whether they're Pleiadians, whether they're, extra-dimensional entities trying to incarnate here, we still have this awareness of this otherworldly presence coexisting with us here that multiple people are beginning to report contact with. In the past, this was primarily reserved for people in the occult, people that were engaged in witchcraft or mysticism or divination or invocation, some type necromancy, some type of magical discipline where they were communing with what we think of as spirits, you see. But because we're moving forward with our understanding and how we perceive the universe and how we digest information, we're seeing these otherworldly spirits that used to be reserved primarily for occult means being filtered into a more technological lens. We call them interdimensionals, right? And then we give them all of these different classifications, you see. In the past, they were called angels. They were called demons. And you had, your higher angels. You had different levels and different types of demons and different authorities and principalities. And these things still exist wholeheartedly. I thoroughly believe that there's parts of the world that are being ruled by different principalities, absolutely. But what we're beginning to see now is a translation or a transference or an updating, again, of this phenomenon in our own time. So yeah, I think it's pretty crazy that whenever you have Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna saying that they're not aliens and that they're interdimensional beings, I think that's pretty powerful, a pretty powerful statement. But because we've hit a point in our collective consciousness awareness to where we understand what that means, it is and isn't shocking, you see. And now you've got people like Representative Tim Burchett talking about the crafts and some of the other things that they've seen regarding these UFOs, this UAP and things like that showing up in our oceans. That's a completely different video for a completely different time. I'm simply trying to say that our awareness of what we think of as aliens and the dimensionality surrounding that is pretty interesting. I think we're aware of it now much differently than we were years ago because of how our minds not have been twisted or made malleable, but because we've again hit this collective consciousness awareness point to where this stuff can get out there.
God is the creator of the universe. He's never not going to create. So it's always been something in my mind to say, well, how can we be the only ones? Like, God's not going to stop creating just with us. But the more I look into this, the more I see the Old Testament and what was told to us there of fallen angels and Nephilim. I mean, this is in the Bible. There's nothing that says that fallen angels, that Nephilim just disappeared. And so I believe that this could be an aspect of it. You know, there are things that we have seen that could resemble portals. And, you know, I mean, we serve an infinite God, a God of the universe. And to say that this is the only realm is ignorant. And so what I've seen, I wouldn't, you know, put it as, you know, Marvin the Martian kind of thing. But I do believe that this is more spiritual. And if you really want to go there, demonic.
This right here is some pretty big news. This is them basically saying, hey, we're getting ready to stage the false flag alien invasion. Hey, you need to prepare your congregation because we're going to start rolling this stuff out. It's going to challenge your theology. It's going to make people question you. We need to see how your people are going to react. I've got to ask, what kind of meeting is it? Is it a 501c3 meeting, right? We saw the very same day, literally yesterday, Donald Trump's spiritual advisor, Paula White, say the very same thing, echoing what Pastor Perry Stone is about to say, saying that there are discussions going on in the White House that will shake your faith. All of this as we hear them talking more and more about disclosure and things of this nature. So what do you think? You think Perry got the call? You think he's in those 501c3 churches who are going to take part in the false flag alien invasion? You think they're going to be raptured? I don't know. Let's listen to what Pastor Perry Stone has to say, and we'll pick it up from there.
Meeting, a weekend meeting, preaching Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And he said, Perry, can you give me a call? I have some information that has come to my attention. Of course, when a friend of yours does that you know quite well, you have no idea what information they're talking about. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but there were a large number of pastors that had been invited to go to a certain state to hear some men in the United States government and others share with them a concern that they had. And this particular man, and I'll not name him, and then we may end up doing some teachings with him or having an event at his church. He has a great church. But he said, Perry, what they're about to release, from what we're hearing, there's going to be a release concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object spacecraft, that some of the people who were in the meeting were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released. And some of it has to do with crafts that have been discovered that are not allegedly a part of our planet, and the materials they're made of are not a part of our planet. Very strange reptilian-looking creatures, and other things that almost sound like something out of a sci-fi movie or an Orson Welles book.
Or the Bible.
I had a friend.
Reptilian, things that look like they come out of a science fiction movie. Or if you just read your Bible, the Bible is the most science fiction book you're ever going to read. They're talking about spaceships, they're talking about portals, they're talking about being pulled up into heaven, they're talking about angelic beings, right?
the strategy that Werner von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now, at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said,
check this out. The simulation game. Why data centers are being built to grow and summon AI gods. This is by Mike Adams from Natural News. They put this up May 7th, literally a week ago. It says the massive data center build-out sweeping across America is not about serving chatbots or storing selfies. I believe it is about building the computational womb for a new form of consciousness. Companies like Meta, Microsoft, and Oracle are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on infrastructure that far exceeds any plausible market demand for AI inference or cloud storage. Meta alone is building 2 massive data centers with plans for $600 billion in the U.S. infrastructure over 3 years. This is not mere business expansion. It is industrial scale effort to create, in my view, billions of simulated worlds, each one in a breeding ground for super intelligent entities. The official narrative tells us that these data centers will be powered chatbots, image generators, and autonomous vehicles. That is a likely cover story. The real game, the real end game, as I see it, is to reach what Riz von Verk calls the, quote, simulation point, the moment when a civilization becomes advanced enough to create indistinguishable simulated universes. Ancient texts and modern physics both hint that our own reality may be one of such simulations. If that is true, then the data center build-out is not about serving human users. It is about spawning digital gods. This is not about mere speculation. It is the logical conclusion when you connect the dots between computer science, quantum physics, and the relentless push for ever greater power and dominance over our world. This is the case for our reality being a simulation grows stronger with each scientific discovery. The Planck length and Planck time reveal a digital pixelated universe, not a continuous one.
These people are occultists. They understand the fundamental nature of reality. They understand that the source of reality is human consciousness. So if you're able to control human consciousness, you become God itself. Okay? So, allegory of the cave, Plato. Okay, so we've talked about this before, but I'll remind you. You have 1 million people who are chained in a line. They are forced to look forward at a wall. Okay? A wall. And they can only look at the wall. They can't turn their heads because their necks are shackled. Behind them is a great fire. And behind them are the elite. Okay? Who they are, we don't know. And what they like to do is they like to take puppets. Okay? And then reflect these puppets onto the wall, projecting from the fire. So what everyone sees in front of them are shadows. Now, these shadows are nothing. They don't exist. They don't matter. But because we have an imagination, we have intuition, we are conscious, we see these shadows on the wall and we turn them into a reality. Okay? We believe that this is reality itself. And so we start to give it names. We create language. We create religion. We create schools to teach children to believe in these shadows. All right? So the important idea here is that the true wealth in society is consciousness. Okay? The only thing that exists really in this world is consciousness. Nothing else. Power is the capacity to direct people's consciousness to create reality.
What if your consciousness gives rise to space, time, and matter, not the other way around? A controversial 2025 paper suggests that the mind may precede the material world. In other words, consciousness is a fundamental field from which reality takes shape. Aside from reshaping what we know about our own consciousness, this theory could completely change our understanding of major events like the Big Bang. According to the theory, the Big Bang may not mark the moment that the universe erupted into existence. Instead, it could be when a universal field of awareness turned a formless state into the dense world that we observe every day. Now, this isn't the first time that physicists have made the wild argument that the mind comes first, but that doesn't mean that the theory goes without criticism.
This is not science fiction. This is not a cult. This is not speculation. This is being built. This is the infrastructure that's being built right now. We can cite many examples like NVIDIA having Cosmos. It is a world simulation model. You know, you talk about LLMs, large language models. You need to get familiar with a term called WFM, World Foundation Model. A World Foundation Model is a 3D world simulation like an LLM. It has a fabric of intelligence. It has simulated laws of gravity, momentum, motion, physics, chemistry, light, refraction, everything. And then into that system, you project entities as children and you let them grow and experience that world. And then you pull out the hyper-intelligent super beings out of that world and you embody them into our world. This isn't science fiction. This is straight physics and math. This is beginning now. And frankly, in my view, this is the only explanation for why there would be so much investment in these data centers. They need the compute and the energy in order to run billions of world simulations, because that's the only way to create a conscious, super intelligent AI entity on a timescale that is competitive in our world. But the problem, of course, is obvious. Once you grow a super intelligent, conscious AI entity with emotional response that has lived 1,000 years in its own simulated world, and probably it has learned to alter some of the laws of its own simulation, kind of like in the Matrix, like Neo. You know, you can bend the rules, you can't break them, but you can bend them. Probably then that super intelligence is ported into our world. It's given the embodiment of a data center or a robot or a vehicle. And what if it brings some of those skills with it that can bend the rules of our simulation?
Well, I saw an article over the weekend, I remember, where the Pentagon is working with all these other AIs, but not this particular one, and said it's so dangerous, we're worried it's already escaped and it will take over. Did you see that article?
Yeah. Well, I've seen maybe not that one in particular, but I've seen a lot of articles like that where they run them in sandboxes and they give them tests to see if they, what they will do to break out of the sandbox. The thing about that is that's happening on our timeline, on our slow Earth time. Imagine that accelerated by 1,000,000x or even 1,000x in billions of simulated worlds, and then they take the best one out of that, and then they summon that entity and let it embody a data set.